Do you want to check it? Quantum Akashic Sign.
You've already hit start.
Do you see it? There it is.
Okay.
There we go. You're good. But just make sure this sounds good. Yeah.
It plays for me.
All right. Mhm. It's going to have a little bit of a lag.
It looks like you're looking down.
Right, because it's a little bit of a lag. So that was a few
Oh.
moments ago.
Oh. The lag.
So,
Mums.
so here we are. We do have 2 more people coming. Is it right on?
But not for long because we're teleporting. So here we are right now.
Right now. Bye-bye.
Here we not are. Here
Okay.
we won't be.
Almost our businesses. It is. It's not literally.
So welcome to First Wednesday for now, in this now moment. And this is superpowers, supernatural powers, because they're natural. And the topic tonight is our second time around doing teleporting, which I'm really excited about. And so teleporting has a close connection to bilocation. So when we're talking about teleporting, we're talking about dematerializing and rematerializing at another nodal point, typically along a world line at another place at one level of build out that I'm going to talk about. And another is, there's many different points of view and probably theories on it, on teleporting, but we're looking at that dematerialization, rematerialization at another coordinate. And if we're believing in location and maps, then we're using a world line and a nodal point to get there. But if we go beyond where we're heading in science into non-location, and we realize that everywhere is happening right here, right now, then we don't necessarily, go anywhere. We just reparticleize what's in the hologram. And we're reparticleizing, stacking up like a 3D printer of where the coordinates are. So if we're utilizing, I just did this with a teenager before I got here. We were talking about this. We were doing sacred geometry. And if we're utilizing, coordinates of somewhere that we have an idea about, like maybe we've never been to the Eiffel Tower, but we have an idea, we've seen it in pictures, and we, could imagine that. So if we have an idea of where the location is, and maybe you even look up the longitude line of that map system, and you know that, and you know that to the right of there's like a little diner, a cafe, then you go ahead and drop into a deep meditative state. Hi. You drop into a deep meditative state, and you have the visual coordinates, the feeling coordinates at what it may feel like, and maybe you have been to the Eiffel Tower. And so whatever level of coordinates you can build out through feeling and through visual blueprinting, you then have a focus, such a strong focus, to Planck. And so when we're weaving in now to really talk about the formula of consciousness, because this formula of planckphire, phi being phi ratio, and Planck being that finite particle, also we could kind of pair it up or put it alongside. If Dan Winters, you're watching this, Winter, maybe you don't agree with this, but like a quanta, like a small quanta particle, or an adamatine particle is another word that's come into the awareness of that really small beginning point, spark. that Planck is where you get so small, like you get to a fairy size. So if you've done quantum jumping and we like go up in, do some ascended breathing up our spine to our pineal gland, and we imagine where there's a little fairy, and we like go through the wormhole, that Planck point of the pineal gland, to literally pop into that next parallel reality, pop into that coordinate of the blueprint that we're visualizing of the Eiffel Tower, the cafe to the right, etc. But we're getting very small to that Planck point, so that in the science of things, we actually expand out. So when we're looking at what phi or planckphire means, it's these energy centers are in phi ratio. So they nest like beautiful Russian dolls that nest inside of each other. So you nest the soul that you are up your energy centers all the way to Planck, to the pineal gland, and you squeeze yourself out into the longitudinal array across the entire map system, and you nest, embed into the entire map system, the entire array, all the ley lines, and you can pop into one of those nodal points because you become all of it. So you go from just this soul packet to you perfected your ability to come out of Planck, come out of the pineal gland, and expand into the entire array, and then land in the location. Again, if we're looking, it's like a middle zone of what we're talking about, middle theory. If we're looking at location and maps, then you land into that world line of that nodal point of where the Eiffel Tower is. So it's easy for you to phase shift, go from form to wave into the array, spread out all the way across the plane of existence, and then you land, reparticleize at that nodal point of the Eiffel Tower. That's, again, looking at location, that we're actually seemingly traveling somewhere from one location to another. Does that make sense? So I really want us to start getting this whole level of science of planckphire, of how powerful that is, because everything in the natural world is rotating and spiraling with phi ratio. Phi.
F.
The phi symbol, circle
okay.
in a line.
Yep.
So 1.618, that golden mean rotation of the spiral, that golden mean spiral is phi, 1.618.
Yeah.
Right? And everything last week we measured from here to here, and it's phi ratio, from here to here. You got a small segment right here. Let's say that's 3 centimeters, and this would be, what would it be, guys? Probably 8. This would be 5, this would 3. So we learned about the Fibonacci sequence, how when we add 0 to 1 and then equals 1, and then 1 to 1 equals 2, and then 1 to 2 equals 3, and 2 to 3 equals 5. You keep adding the last 2 numbers together. That's the same sequence or ratio of numbers when you're looking at the golden mean ratio, 1.618. When you put 5 over 3, those Fibonacci numbers, and you divide it out, you'll get the same 1.618. So we realize that everything is spiraling. Even if you lay down and look at the clouds, it's all doing the same golden mean ratio. If you look at the tree, the way it's growing, it's doing the same golden mean ratio. Everything is. So when you realize that that's the key, golden locket key to actually do this type of teleportation and realizing what you're actually doing when you rematerialize, you can work with the longitudinal array and actually get good at, and I'm going to talk about how you get good at it, but get good at dematerializing and then rematerializing where your focus is. Because another cool thing that we've come to realize is that where you focus in your meditation. So if you're looking at law of attraction, you're blueprinting. If you're looking at just practicing for 20 minutes, focusing and not thinking, just focusing up here, and see if you can actually start to see the wormhole, your plasma tunnel. Sometimes you'll see it when you're getting ready to fall asleep, or when you're waking up, you start tunneling, when you get ready to lucid dream. But when you're meditating and you can start to see at your pineal gland that vortex of your plasma, or of your torus, and the plasma that's moving through, when you focus right here, what you're actually seeing is that top of that central channel. at the pineal gland. And that's where you're going to exit out. Dan called it squeezing out the end of the toothpaste. You squeeze out and expand into the totality of all consciousness, of all space. Hi. So when you focus, this is so important. And you start to master your ability to focus right here. You have the keys to the kingdom to get back to this topic that we're working on. And when you realize that when you're actually going from, let's say you're spread out, you feel like you're nothingness. You close your eyes, you're laid out maybe, or you're sitting in meditation, you just went out. You're like, someone put their hand right through your, form because you're just not even there. You've totally spread out. Anyone ever felt that? You just feel spread out, right? Like pure space, nothingness. When you're from that space to coming back in, a lot of times this happens when I'm coming back into my body from dream time. And I feel I'm coming back into that wormhole and into the body, and it gets really purple, really blue. And then I'm like, back. When you're coming back in right here, your torus, the plasma that you be, it self-organizes back down in here, back down into the torus. Just like it will expand you out when you go ahead and squeeze to that Planck point. So the definition of consciousness, of ensoulment, or how to ensoul, how to take memory through transition points of teleportation, or, some will call it transitioning to like death. To take all that memory with you is what I'm talking about. Planck times phi, 1.618, gets you to understand this whole mapping system of how existence is here. And you are all of it. Like, you're it. So we're going to keep deep diving into that. And there'll be, I really love to have my Apple Pen working again, so I can draw on the board here some things. But the next thing I want to talk about, or before I do, any questions?
I had a question about, you were saying transitioning, especially back, through death into non-physical and carrying that consciousness or carrying that memory with you. Do you think that doesn't already happen? Or do you think that has to be deliberate?
Being ensouled, meaning you're here, you've got full memory.
Of this now.
All
Right.
this lifetime, you can easily tap into other lifetimes, is an art of self-organizing and being ensouled. It's coming back into this perfected wholeness. And in the transition point to go to another lifetime, it definitely can happen naturally. And again, we're coming out of linearity thinking or time thinking, where we're like, oh, the next lifetime I should carry with me all the skills that I did. But what if you jump to another lifetime, but you want to master that and you want to forget again? So what if like your most evolved lifetime is seemingly in the past and you were a monk in the Himalayas, but yet that isn't the way it really works. It's not a timeline going forward. It's more of this like game, this cycle game to get in and master. It's like you're leveling up. And yet you skipped a skill. And so you seemingly go ahead in time, but it seems like it would have been back in time because you lost skills. So it's like, when you look at it and you ask consciousness, what I hear is like, you guys don't really understand, you're looking at time, and it's not really about that. It's about skill sets and mastering different things. And actually, one thing that came up when Sabelle's Ascended Master meetup, which I highly suggest, we're going to do Serpius Bay next Wednesday. I was like talking to Commander Ashtar before her meetup, and I was like, why, haven't you guys come to me? Like, why I don't work with you guys that much, like other Ascended Masters. And my conscious is like, well, you agreed to not do that this lifetime. You agreed to do it all on your own because you wanted to master, like just getting all the downloads from meditation. And even though I've had different times, like especially in my 20s, where I definitely did work with different Ascended Masters, it was so confusing. And so I actually was like, all right, back out, because I really need to understand this, like from my soul. And I was actually asked to, I went and was living out of my vehicle and living in couches and ashrams and different sustainable communities. And I ended up at Yogananda's ashram in Nevada City, just outside of San Francisco. And I was supposed to take a, their vow and like make sure that, Yogananda was going to be my guru. And I was like, and I was so resistant to it. And I laid there that night in the ashram, and I was like, all right, I need a sign right now. And then all the lights turned on. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was obviously probably working with like yes and no questions and things like that. But the lights turning on was like, no, you're your own guru. You need to just go ahead and tell them no to this. It's not your path. Okay, so coming back. So I want to talk about, before we do practices, I want to talk about, so moving from location point of view of like we just talked about, you're going from one place to another, you're rematerializing another location, into non-location, where we start to realize like, okay, wait a minute, if this is a holographic reality and everything really is just very similar to the way these projectors work. Like if I just really close my eyes and everything becomes a wave, and you realize that when you close your eyes, you literally, everything does go out of focus and go out of phase and come from particle to a wave. And so when you reopen your eyes, what's in front of you is what you believe to be there, sum total of what you believe to be in front of you, which will then also kind of weave in what would be projecting on the green screen, the hologram in front of you. So if we really believe that the Eiffel Tower was going to show up when we open our eyes, and we really could come out of phase and realize that this was all just stacked up light particles that I was printing on the green screen of the hologram to be a building, and you guys are all sitting here, and this is a projector, and all of a sudden I open my eyes and we're actually all at the Eiffel Tower, and we're like sitting back at a like Airbnb, like all these like lazy boy chairs, and we're like, oh my God, we did it. But yet we, in that theory of non-location, we didn't actually go anywhere. We just printed the new scene. We allowed ourselves to have a bigger, expanded point of view of, I'm actually not going anywhere. I just, in the old world where we had maps and location, we believed that we were driving the car, when really it was the avatar sensation system that was built in to have us feel like we were getting in the plane to go or drive the car. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's tough to wrap your mind around, this idea that we're interpreting vibration as we see it and hear it and feel it. But the vibration is the wave and it is the particle, but that's our only known method at this particular point in time of interpreting that. And what you're talking about is an elevated version.
Yeah,
that's difficult, I think, for me anyway, to be like, okay, I get it, but you don't know that I really get it. Like I don't get it.
Like I hear what you're saying, but I don't believe kind of like.
Well, it's because then it's like that old movie, The Matrix, right? There is no spoon. Like there is a spoon, but there is no spoon. If there is no spoon, what am I really interpreting, if anything?
A belief set,
right?
Right. A sequence of coordinates.
So that's why I get it, but I don't know that I really get it.
And because we have so much belief system, socially, culturally, lifetime after lifetime, in that way, it takes a lot of deconstruction of belief system to actually land on what I'm talking about. However, science is finally at what I'm talking about. Right. So that's what's really cool, is that the sages and the masters in the Himalayan mountains who do probably really identify with what I'm talking right now, or can really drop into that, science has caught up. And if things are cyclic, then that means there's been other times around a precession of the equinox, or thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, where we've done this again and again and again. We've come to this place where we're actually like ready to come out of gross matter, from being so solid and like clinging to like, oh wait, this is a lot more fluid. And then maybe there's this point that we're entering in here, our psyche of consciousness of collective, because it's come to mainstream science, that we actually will realize and maybe have little glimpses of what I'm seeing right now, that we're like actually on the plane, but like I just had it right now. Like we're actually on a plane right now going somewhere.
Like, different.
Going to France. That's what I had a vision several times today, and all of you were there. So, yeah. Meaning we're going to have these like drop-in glitches, points of our inner vision where all of a sudden it just goes, and like all of a sudden you see like this airplane, and all of a sudden you see us actually standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. And that's things coming out of, word I'm escaping right now.
I'm probably not
Stability.
gonna word this properly. So to me, it's like we don't know what's behind some doors. So if we, for a physical thing to actually say, okay, if I walk through that door right there, I'll be at the Eiffel Tower. It might be easier to grasp that. I don't know. If
Yes.
that makes sense.
Because it's easier, whatever's easiest on the psyche at the point that you're at, that it's easier that you go, oh, I have to at least go through a door or go behind something that I can't see.
Well, but I've heard something where they say, does the forest actually exist if you're not
there.
looking at it or not at
And
it?
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So using the example of a door in a place that, for instance, you don't know. So I've never been through this door that's in front of me right now. I can use that as my tool
Yeah.
to help me say, okay, behind that door, I am going to see this,
Yeah.
that, or the
Are
other
you saying in your imagination or to physically go through the door?
in my imagination.
And that's where we have to move out of that there's actually physicality, because it's 99% empty space. The gross matter physicality that we've been considering to be physical. And so it's flipping that in our awareness and starting to like go look at, go through. I love this exercise of, going through a whole day and being like, oh, that's empty space. So that means that's all just stacked up light particles that looks like form, and start to actually pull yourself out of these strong belief systems that things are things.
Oh,
Yeah. The other thing is kind of along with that glitching and things becoming unstable, that we're dropping into these higher parallel versions of ourselves that actually are doing this and do I have a greater capacity to wrap our brain around this, is to realize that it's already happening. Like if you really thought about how you got here, do you remember driving the whole way
absolutely.
to get here to this place?
I do, because it was a short drive and I was listening to a song and singing in the car.
So you're focused and engaged, right? But a lot of times we're not focused and engaged. So it's starting to like really kind of question in meditation, like, where did I actually teleport like strongly today? Like, give me an example. Show me what's going on really. So it's these inner questions that we're going to be, start to ask ourselves.
So I understand the Eiffel Tower thing, like in the airplane, like we could all, just see in our mind's eye being on the airplane or being at the bottom or the cafe or whatever. But as far as these physical atoms or whatever are stacked up like particles, like I don't think we could actually all teleport there in our physical body.
So
that's just because of a belief system, or I don't.
It's practice and mastery. So looking at the monks, I think it was Greg Braden who studied the brain waves of those who could dematerialize and rematerialize. That when they did and they were in meditation, that their brain went from, let's just first look at the known brain states that we're typically talking about, which is beta to alpha to delta to theta to gamma. And then the other two that aren't really talked about or finally are starting to be talked about are epsilon and lambda. And so epsilon is 0 to 0.04 hertz, where Lambda is 100 to 200 hertz. So what he showed is that when they were able to do these like great acts, their brain, they went into deep meditation and their brain went from hyper gamma to lambda. And at lambda, 100 to 200 hertz, what happens is the whole brain turns on. Like, just like when the fresh baby comes out, and there's nothing that's, told anything, it's just pure source. That whole brain becomes illuminated at lambda. And then right when the act happens of their great abilities, it goes to 0 hertz, 0 to 0.4 hertz, which is Epsilon. And the brain still stays fully activated. So there's a wormhole there. That when your brain is fully activated and you're in these higher states of like very fast to 0, which is why 0 point is such an important thing, having no thoughts, no point of view, and being able to just like come to stillness. That stillness then causes the dematerialization and the rematerialization. So again, these practices of mastery of meditation and getting yourself to be able to actually, reach these states, which is why we have, the new brain monitor.
But the monks, their physical body actually just disappears.
Goes out of phase
Reappears
and then reappears.
wherever
Yeah. I think in this example, they were just going out of phase and then rematerializing. They weren't actually going anywhere.
So was that something that people observing were able to actually see, or was that something that the monks experienced in their own?
I'll have to find the episode.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because not that just, I'm trying to say it carefully because I don't want it to sound like the monks experiencing it themselves is somehow less than if somebody were able to see that. But I would think it's a different evidence, or it's a different experience of if I see you blink out of your chair and come back.
So you're talking matrix.
That's well, it's
We're
just
talking Star Trek.
right. We're
Remember when they got into
talking.
that area and then
Beam
they
me up, Scotty.
Well, okay, so let me.
So
say this.
rephrase it because I stepped away for a second.
No, that's
Apologize.
fine. So we're talking a skill that is demonstratable even to somebody that's maybe not on the same level as what the practitioner is. So so this is what I'm trying to say, and maybe not saying well. If me as a practitioner have that ability in my mind, in my experience, and in my ability to come out of phase and come back into phase, and it's real to me because I'm
Experiencing
creating that.
Yeah.
I would think there's still yet another level of expertise that would allow me to do that in a way that she would
could
be able
observe
to
it.
experience, even if she's not at the same place that I am. So that's what I'm asking.
You mean experience it and do it with you, or observe?
Observe.
Yeah.
Observe.
Which comes up to like the double slit experiment, right? Like where
I don't know what that is. So
Okay.
maybe not. I don't
Okay.
know. Maybe.
I think of like
I'll talk about it in a
like
second.
magicians like David Blaine, and how that's the only way I can I can justify or explain to my mind what they're doing is, I guess, kind of like shape shifting, like
When they're really doing it. Yeah.
Right. When it's not just an illusion.
Yeah.
I think quiet and personal time within enhances that capability. And that most people, well, not most, but a lot of people are just now starting to tap into these because more solitude within and quiet space around them offers that deeper connection and ability. And I feel like if people are living like a really busy life, that societal, rules and schedules and all that, they're far away from these type of experiences.
Possibly.
That's
Yeah.
why if it's rare, it's because maybe like the monks, they're spending so much time in that quiet space. It's enhancing all that.
Absolutely. Yes, the skills come back online, as well as we're coming back into the remembrance by tapping in to the merger of our entire incarnations, many incarnations, and those skills coming back online, as well as tapping into just like things like being able to reach bliss stillness, and then you expand into the longitudinal array, you expand into space, and all of a sudden things come back. Like you're like, oh my gosh, I just had like a major awakening, right? These awakenings that happen, they're spontaneous for people. Some people have had no practice and have a spontaneous awakening. Some people have been meditating, doing fasting, all kinds of things for years. Ultimately, it's where are you in that moment of your own evolution that you then tap back into these skill sets. So ultimately, focus and the desire, like a pure intention, a pure desire to want to be able to do it. And again, coming out of some of these fixed belief systems, these strong belief systems that you've been identifying with, time, with location, with form, all these things, when you start to loosen up around that and have that intention and have that pure focus, we're going to see.
Like, go ahead.
Oh, what type of vortex I create when I like I close my eyes and try to visualize that dream I had? Like, I'm wanting the same.
To go back into a dream you've had?
Yeah. What type of vortex am I creating to chase that?
Intention, number one, right?
Right.
Coordinates, which is remembering something about it, and the intention. The intention sets up a coordinate in the field for you to either print it, if you're believing in the printing version, or to go back to it in the astral. And then maybe breathing, right? Some deep, long breathing, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, so that you're slowing down the heart rate to get to what's called a mirror wave, 0.1 hertz. And you're slowing down the brain waves by that focus, right? When you get to focus, it goes to alpha, then to gamma. Then we start going into these to delta and theta when we're sleeping, but if we're meditating, we literally can drop into these other spaces as well. Gamma, hypergamma, lambda, epsilon. I wish I had my drawing up because I'll send you that, those brainwaves. But that focus, slowing things down, slowing down the brain, the heart, and that pure intention, right? And what Dan talks about, that third element that's needed, or would be a fourth, is getting your blood turned back on. And that's what the Holy Grail is about, and being this beautiful, pristine being of deep, rich blood that can actually also alchemize and create enough spark, in your system that allows you to do all these higher abilities. So it's that merger of heart, brain, intention, and our blood. So there's something else. So close your eyes and imagine, as you close your eyes, imagine where I was sitting. And then imagine me standing up to the right of it. And then open your eyes. Right? So, essentially that's what we're doing. We're going from one subset of particles of light stacked up to a focused coordinate of intention to another. And so Spirit wanted me to do that. They told me earlier, so I did it. And it's playing with.
But it is as simple as that.
Yes, it's playing with a community. That also why I'm so excited to be back together with everybody in this way, because it's us pushing these topics and playing with them and doing some middle zone playing of like, okay, with the door, or, anything extra that we can do, knowing that, maybe like a magician style of the old way magician that really isn't really doing it, but doing some tricks on you. But it gets you to start wiggling out of the disbelief to like, well, maybe this is possible. And that's how it would look, like literally the scene.
Right.
Please.
It just makes something that I've been really seeing over the last couple of years is our realities. The proof that it's all illusions is I live in this world where my life is really quite magical and everything like that. but my neighbor could be going through and seeing completely different or experiencing a totally different, unpleasant, everything but magical life. It could be people that watch the news on a religious basis, people that are experiencing things that I have no desire to even see, which is why I don't listen to the news, watch the news, or anything like that. So I'm wondering if there's any correlation between the two. It's also a desire to create. So if I don't want to see, for instance, a monk disappear and come back, then I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I've been told about this thing where with the new dimensions, like the 3D to 5D, etc., it's like there's this piece of glass between us and or 3D, 5D and building. And so we can still see what's going on over there, but as it gets thicker and thicker, you'll see less and less of the old way and more of the new way, shall I call it? And I just felt that I was supposed to share that somehow because it's helped me understand a few things that, because I'll talk to somebody and they'll go on and on about how terrible everything is and about all the wars, and I'm sitting going, oh, talk about, like it just doesn't resonate for me. And I just,
And that's the individual, each projecting their own point of view of their sum total of beliefs, thoughts, and memories, which is, we're looking at that where they're experiencing their own show, right? Their projection, as well as then you've got the parallel realities, that everything is happening all at once. There's a version of you that's still driving here. There's a version of you that's doing something else 10 years ago, 10 years forward. That is all happening at once. It's where your focus is that you're actually experiencing, which is why when you tell a story, you are essentially time traveling. Like you're bringing it all up and there you go. You're right back there.
It's like all in your mind. I mean, I get everything you're saying. Some of it goes like in my head, but I get what you're saying, that like we can think of something in the past or the teacher, the driver, or whatever, all in here, and so it can be anywhere in our minds, I guess.
We're anywhere in our minds, true. And then we open our eyes and use this avatar to experience what is in the mind. That's where we're starting to actually dissect this and realize what's been going on. But coming back to the parallel realities where everything is happening at once, and there's different versions. I had it happen yesterday or day before. Yesterday's to me are all whatever, it could be a week or 2 weeks. You hear me say yesterday and you're like, no, it was 5 days ago. To me, it was yesterday. Anywho, I clearly saw someone at one point and they clearly saw me at another point where we both couldn't have been at the same spot. So they just saw another version of me and I saw another version of them. And that's happening more and more of all different types of examples because we're coming undone at the seams around all of this. So you'll start playing, seemingly like your mind's playing tricks on you, but it's not. It's you're starting to come out of phase or destabilize these strong point of views, and you're starting to see like what has always been going on. And it's what are you willing to allow it? Because if it makes you frightened and you're like, oh my God, that feels too unstable, I want to come back to where I just like know that it's a linear timeline and that I'm going to get in the plane and land in Canada. That happens a lot, that it's just like too much. As well as if you're ready and you can have the key to enlightenment called imagination and you get it back from innocence of the child, you really do start to come back into this alignment of these scientific topics that are finally starting to mainstream. So let it all go. So before I leave that topic of bilocation, I just want to say the bilocation is like you're here and you're also in Italy at the same time. And one fun exercise that we've done, that we can, maybe I'll add it into our meditation, is that someone sees you right now in Italy and they tell you, oh my God, I totally saw you. And you're like, yeah, I was doing a bilocation exercise. Or, yeah, it's my twin. I know, someone says that all the time. You might have had that where people tell you they clearly saw you in Colorado and you're like, yeah, okay. Another version of me. Anyone else have anything they want to share before we do a guided meditation?
Like I say, it's my wormhole. It's just, it's ready. So let's do this.
You ready? Ready? So let's go ahead and zoom back if you want into zero gravity. And so that I can whisper, release the mouth. So taking your chair to where it feels comfortable, knowing that you can go all the way back in zero gravity. Or we can be in alignment with heart to knees, whatever feels comfortable. Remember that the headrest can move off the chair if you don't like it. It's most important to be comfortable when you're doing exercises like this. And that you do have a blanket if you want that. And let's go ahead and just do some ascended breathing where we're going to inhale very slowly. Inhale nice and slow up your spine, squeezing your root, your belly button, your ribs. And bringing the breath all the way up to the top of the head. And then exhaling slowly out your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhaling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhaling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At that rate, keep that going, inhaling and giving more attention also to the squeezing of the lower body, root, belly button, lower rib cage. Even if it feels like you have to take a second inhale through your mouth just to take it to a full 5, do that. And then exhale long and slow. As you're inhaling up the spine, take your inner vision to the pineal gland, slightly up in the middle. And even if you don't see it, just imagine that you're seeing this wormhole, this ability to expand up the channel, and then it constricts into that wormhole, and then it re-expands throughout the plane of existence. Adding in a smile so that you tap into longitudinal wave, which is bliss, which is pure consciousness. Realizing that regardless of anything we've talked about tonight, that deep down in your most evolved awareness, you know that there's a way to travel through space as consciousness itself. And a few more, inhaling, squeezing it up. On the next 2, hold slightly so you give a little bit of extra pressure to the pineal gland so that it activates the rhomboid piezo crystals. And then as you're doing that, as the breath does what it needs to, begin to realize that there's somewhere you want to go. Even if the physical body has some work to do on dematerialization, your consciousness itself is able to dial into coordinates. Meaning, where do you want to go? Setting up the blueprint, even if we just do blueprinting, is perfect. As well as we're also traveling there as pure consciousness. Visualize as much detail of the place that you're going. Notice if there's anyone there with you. Generate the feelings, the emotion of what it feels like as you visualize this space. Notice the weather, the terrain, the sounds. Beyond the sounds of this space, you're able to truly experience this space, this coordination of a symphony of light. Notice as you look down, if you can sense that you have landed there in form. Notice your hands. And notice even above as you look up. As you consistently work with the focusing in on any other details and feeling the feelings of being there. Allow for your consciousness to go ahead and do any additional downloads to you, even you communicating to consciousness or any others that are with you. As you do so, you may feel like you're traveling in those scenes a little bit further into the experience. Your consciousness wants to show you something very specific so that when you do have the realization that this is indeed real, you can remember. Work with your consciousness to see what that is that wants to be shown to you, known to you, realized. And then crystallize this experience. Pour forth love light into the experience and all that surrounds. As you do so, give thanks to all the details and to the perfection of that now, this now, and all nows. As we are pulling into a dematerialization state from that coordination of light particle, allow the pure bliss consciousness that you are to go ahead and rise and wash in the luminescent love golden light. Allow this golden light of cleansing to wash away any imprints, strong point of views, or belief systems that are no longer serving your next evolution. Not even needing to identify them, just allowing the golden luminescent love light to wash, cleanse, and re-sparkle the pure essence. As we all sparkle as this pure bliss consciousness, Begin to go ahead and gather your awareness back down into the avatar, breathing into your central channel, deepening your breath down the channel, down out the nerves into all the light particle parts. Intend to be rebalanced, refreshed, and stabilized as you come back into particleization. Begin to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your nose. And as you wiggle your nose, remember that your nose also has piezo crystals at the tip, which is why I Dream a Genie wiggled her nose. Stretch your body and go ahead when you feel right and ready. Bring yourself in your chair up to a seated, reclined, semi-reclined position.